Well, today is the first day of the rest of my life, and I need to do something new with it. I get up early, though today I slept all the way until 5, but normally I've been getting up at 3 in the morning, which is not good. Does not work for me anymore. When I get up at 3 in the morning, I sort of hit a brick wall at about 2, and then the rest of my day is kind of shot. And at the end of the day, I look back at the last few hours and think, boy, what a loser. So I'm gonna be a winner. Changing my attitude. So when that brick wall hits, I'm going to, come hell or high water, come rain or shine, I'm going to go outside and breathe some fresh coronavirus particles in the air, or whatever is out there. Smell the roses, smell the flowers. It's spring outside. I can go outside and draw. Today is a very gloomy day, which I kind of like. So I may go out and try to draw mud. Yeah, no wonder I'm depressed, right? No, I've got all sorts of other reasons to be depressed, but drawing mud is not one of them. I really like those gray, gloomy days are sort of my kind of day because everything is gray and black and white. Color sort of goes way off in the distance, and I'm not much of a color person. So what I am going to be doing today, later on in the day, is talking with my friend Wasky Squirrel, who collects pens and has a YouTube channel that I enjoy watching. Not so much for the pens, but just his, yes, for the pens, of course, for the pens, but for his take on them and his life in rural North Dakota. And there's something very comforting about that open prairie. I'm from Minnesota originally, and I sort of have an affinity to that landscape. And I get to visit it, though this year I don't know whether I will because of this virus thing. So yesterday I did two things. I found this pen, which I will talk about shortly, and I fixed this nib to the degree that I thought I could fix it. And did I fill this with ink yet? I did fill it with ink. I was going to put it in a pen that has a sack in it and just see how well it writes. It's not perfect, but it's much, much better than it was before. It's scratchy, yes. And it skips at the beginning, which is not a good idea for it to skip at any time, but especially at the beginning. And the reason it's doing that is I haven't fixed it enough, I guess. The two tines right at the very tip are split a little bit, so the capillary action doesn't get the ink to the paper. So the first strokes don't work, and eventually when the ink is going up and down the part of the channel that does work, and you flex in and out and back and forth, it eventually works better. In fact, maybe that was just set incorrectly. Yeah, that's better. Maybe it's skipping again. So there's still some issues with this nib. Let's pretend that issue didn't exist. What about this nib? It's a little sloppy, and I think that's because of the trauma that it had. What it looked like, I couldn't figure out how best to describe it. But if you if you go to your kitchen and you take a spoon, it doesn't have to be a soup spoon, just a regular tablespoon, and you want to put the bowl end into the sink and put it into the garbage disposal and turn it on for, I don't know, 20 seconds maybe. That's what this nib looked like. Your spoon will come out with scratches and dings and gouges and all sorts of nastiness. And that's what this nib looks like at the very tip. It could have fallen down the garbage disposal. But I believe in this case it was just someone tried to repair it with their regular pliers, not their fancy nib pliers. So, hence the problem. So let's say this is the best this nib could be. Be the best. Yes, Mrs. Trump. Did you tell that to your husband yet? I've already talked about her ineptitude at understanding the English language, which, English is not her first language. So I can forgive her for using the wrong word, but some of her staff must understand that there's only one person that can be best. You can do your best, but you can't be best. Only one person can be best. So, what is the best this can do? It still might be worse than 90% of the other pens I have, but what is the best this can do at this point? If I write slowly, there's a friend of mine in my building who borrowed a pen from me, or she bought a pen from me actually, and she didn't have a lot of money to spend, and she doesn't use the pen very often. So I sold her a pen that has a flaw. And I said, at some point, it's going to get worse. And at that point, I'll exchange the nib for another one that's broken. It has a breather hole here, and there's a little tiny crack right there. And the crack is not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. But she uses her pen to make place cards. And this is if I was invited to her tea party, which I have been, she'll make my little name like that. And she writes slowly and writes that big and uses pressure. So right now she's had the pen with that crack for years now, and she still gives parties and still makes her place cards. So it's working fine. And when it eventually breaks off and this thing goes flying off into the corner of her studio, I have a number of broken nibs, or maybe she'll be able to afford a pen that has a good nib. And I'm happy to loan her a pen. I know where she lives. She's not going anywhere anytime soon, so I could loan her a pen that doesn't have a problem. But she's sort of a guinea pig. I just want to see whether a pen that I would give up on as being unusable, whether it's in fact usable. My standards are a little different, or my purpose for you having that pen is a little different. I don't have a pen that I just use for doing place cards. But if I did, this pen could be used for that, because the fine is not as fine as it could be because of its issue. But if you have a fine nib, really, really fine, that's on a place card like this, I mean, here's a standard place card, looks about the size of a business card. And if I have John Quincy Adams's name here, Quincy Adams, the letters cannot be very big. And if the thin lines were really, really fine, you won't be able to see that in the candlelight. In Mrs. Bucket's candlelight bouquet, Mrs. Bouquet's candlelight dinner, you won't see those fine lines, they'll disappear. So I often will, if I know a dinner is going to be a candlelight dinner, I'll use a pen that's like this, it's very springy, it gets very fat, with not very much pressure, and its fine lines are thicker. So if you only use a pen for doing place cards, this would be the pen for you. So it does have a purpose, even though it is scratchy and it looks like it had trauma, which it did have. Let's put this nib back in. But it does work to a degree, and I might be able to fix it a little bit more. And this pen I can go fast like that and it's going to be fine. This pen I couldn't do that with. So let me empty this. Come on, beer. And put this back where it belongs in the group of pens that's for sale. I gave a tour of all of the places where I keep my pens and how I sort them out recently, and I completely forgot to include the pens that I have in zippered cases that I bring to a pen show, or just going to see if I can fix this anymore. Bring to a pen show, or bring to my when we do our urban sketching as a group, I might bring 3 or 4 pens that have flexible nibs, or nibs that are good for drawing. They don't have to be flexible. They could be really, really fine. And I'll let people try them out for a couple of hours. But anyway, I forgot to show those. There's still a bend, and again it happened when this nib fell down the garbage disposal, or fell on the floor, or whatever caused it to break or bend the way it did. Under the loop, let's see if I made it any better. God. It's really nasty looking, the slit. Here's the ideal slit. Oops, I just drew I drew the actual slit. The ideal slit is a straight line, but this one, I didn't intend to do that. It does this kind of a thing. It sort of has this jiggly business at the end. No wonder it's traumatized, because someone took their, pliers they used to take off their lug nuts on their truck to try to fix it, rather than these little dainty things here that don't have any little marks on them to screw up the nib. I'll fix that later. So my friend Wasky we're gonna have a little test today with our YouTube. We talk to each other on YouTube, and I am trying to figure out a way to perfect my system of having a conversation using YouTube, or they can be recorded where we can have our virtual sitting across the table from each other. And I thought I would talk about this pen. And this pen is sort of a freak. It's a 494, which in Waterman nomenclature is a sterling overlay, number 4 size nib, and the 9 was the 9 in the tens column. Sort of means it's a lever filler, I presume. That's all they were making at that time. And it was a size that was a little fatter than the 52 size. But what's interesting about this pen is it has an old style clip, which was on its way out when this pen was being made. They eventually changed these clips to a more modern thing, which I don't like as much. The rivets were they visible? God, I can't even remember. But what's lovely about this pen is it's all sterling, smooth sterling. It has a sterling section, sterling threads, which are just beautiful. And they're raised up. How are they? They raised up on wall. Wall threads are dug in to the barrel. These are raised up from the barrel, which is really cool, I think. Some Waterman pens have, hard rubber pens have things that are raised up as well rather than cut in, which are kind of neat. So anyway, a sterling section, sterling everything, and it's smooth. And except for all of the dings and scratches it has, which are perfect. If this pen did not have those, it would be less beautiful to my eyes. I love the warmth and the patina on this pen. Each of these little dings and scratches were part of this person's, well, whoever owned the pen, part of this pen's life. I don't care about the person. It's the pen, the pen's life. I can't remember who I bought this from. But God, it's lovely. Now, in its life since I owned it, I don't know what I did to it, but it got clogged with ink. And I took the section out, but I could not, I tried ultrasonic cleaning, I tried all sorts of stuff to get the feed out, and eventually, as I was trying to work on it and pound with my nib block, pound the feed out, I chipped a big chunk of the sack nipple off, which my heart sank, because this is connected to this, and that can't be replaced. So there was this big cavity out of the side, and there was just this tiny little bit of hard rubber that I could still attach the bottom of the sack to. And it just broke my heart. I finally got the feed and nib out by putting it in I tried an ultrasonic cleaner, that didn't work, and a friend of mine said, put it in why was there a microwave involved? There shouldn't have been, because I heated up water on the stove, I guess, and sort of shocked the system. All of the ink ran away, making it come outable. Anyway, this is a beautiful pen, and it's beautiful because of so many reasons. But what's neat about it is it's very heavy, and I have a very fine, as you can tell, somewhat flexible nib in it, and I haven't used this pen pad in many years, so there's probably some old ink in here that's making it skip a little bit. But the weight of the pen is really quite a neat thing to hold in your hand. It draws attention to itself a little bit more than I like pens to. I'm always aware that it's in my hand. And sometimes I like pens that will disappear, and this one doesn't because of its heft. So I end up looking at it and examining its beauty. Here, I'm not even in the center of the camera, sorry. You're not missing much. It's all silver and has dings in it. I like this pen because I like it because it looks like it was the guy that invented this style was hired by Waterman after the Great Northern Railway stopped making locomotives or something, and he had the ability to work with metal things, and he said, well, there's an opening at the Waterman plant, I'll go over there. And there's something that's very deliberately butch about this pen. Maybe it's the raised thing there, it's the old style clip and lever rather than the new style that they were making. And it has these fencing scars. It's really just perfect. I'm not entirely positive that the nib I have in here is the nib that it should have, meaning the personality of this pen maybe would feel better if it had a nib like this, a big, loud, noisy, flexible nib rather than the nib that it has. And I may change it, swap it out at some point for one that has that quality. But I'm just going to fill this up with ink because I'm hoping that the skipping is, again, I haven't used this pen in such a long time. There might be dried up ink in the feed, so I'll just let that sit for a bit. I think maybe the nib shouldn't be this delicate because the pen is not delicate. This nib sort of belongs in this pen. And maybe this nib belongs in swapping the nibs. They're not the right size. This is a 4 and that's a 2, so they won't swap. But I wonder if it would swap with this one. What kind of nib does this have? Oh, it is a 4. Shall I do the operation? The transplant I'm doing right now is with a desk pen I oh God, look at that. Just globs of thick So yes, it needs to be soaked in water, I think. This should be a 4. Does it say 4 on it? It does say 4. Oftentimes you find 4 nibs that are cracked in the back, and it's because the 4 size Waterman pen and the 2 size Waterman pen, back in the hard rubber days, they were identical in dimension. They only had a bigger nib and a slightly bigger hole and a bigger feed, but the front and the cap and the barrel were the same size. And oftentimes people would not know that and shove their number 4 into their number 2 pen and crack the nib. So there are often number 4 nibs are pretty rare that aren't cracked because of that. Okay, so now what I've done is I've put, this is more, this nib sort of belongs in this pen. It's beefier. I'm going to empty this with, I'm going to just fill this up with water to get it going here. Just to, look at that mess. That ink was really oily and thick, syrupy. I don't like this nib as much as that other one, but it fits the personality of this pen more. This is the pen that the designer would use to write down his shopping list every day. He'd say, okay, what do I need? I need milk, coffee, ton of bricks, carriage bolts, extra large soldering iron. You know, this was too delicate. This nib, which isn't pushed in enough there. I don't know whether this nib belongs in this pen particularly, but yeah, this works fine here. There's something about the extra length of this pen that's balanced and that sort of lifts up a little bit on the nib end. So I think this is a better, by swapping these nibs with these pens, I've made each pen better. That's your opinion, Mr. Gustafson. No, I'm right. I'm just telling you, I'm right. It is not an opinion. It is not an alternative fact. It's in fact a fact. Yeah, this demanded, it's like this nib here. This short, stubby, bulldoggy pen needs to have that kind of a nib in it. This bulldoggy or Doberman-y or whatever pen needs to have this in it. And it's, right now it's filled with dirty water, which is now mixing with the whatever ink, sludge. I should call in the hazmat team to make this a cleanup site, whatever they call those people, because it's pretty sluggish right now because of all of the goop that was in it. So anyway, this is a favorite of mine. You know, if I had 3 pens to take with me on my desert island, this would be one of them. And I might have to think really long and hard about the 3 pens. This would be one. There would be a Waterman, a Parker 51 would be on that desert island, and there would be one of my dip pen, Frankenpen calligraphy pens for calligraphy. So this is the pen that I would use for drawing. And I probably would want, well, this might be a good enough nib for drawing, because I can push it around a lot without worry about breaking it. So this might be the perfect pen, as is. It's good for drawing. Would it distract me too much? Would I be drawing my 5,000th? Look at it, spat up for some reason. Why did it do that? I'll figure that out. The nibs are not quite aligned. My 5,000th palm tree. And I don't even like palm trees, I'll be saying. And there was a point I was going to make with this. I think there's enough life in this pen to really draw 5,000 palm trees, but also I think I'd get used to its beauty, so I won't be, I'm drawing this yet again, and I think, oh, this lovely little pen, sterling with all its little dings. I think it would eventually disappear. Right now I'm very conscious of it because of also the weight of the pen. The weight is the thing, more than the sterling. It's heavy, heavier than my pens normally are, and it's sort of demanding me to be more aggressive than I normally would be. So I think this would be the pen to draw those palm trees with, because I'd end up hating the palm trees, and this would be the perfect pen. Thoughts? Comments? I'll just go to this pen. I did find out that this was the pen that I did buy on eBay, and it wasn't the other ones that look almost like it. This one, again, the interesting thing about this pen there are little tiny vertical lines on the rings. There's also little tiny lines on either side of the lever that match. And my other pens that look identical to this almost do not have those lines. So this was a very special Waterman desk pen. I can imagine the woman at the counter buying this for her husband for his Christmas present. These are just so plain, she says to the man, and the man is thinking, oh God, I've got to spend hours with this woman as she's deciding what pen she wants to buy her husband. And he finally shows her this one. Oh, perfect. It has just that amount of decoration. Yeah, lady, he'll say. He's a gruff pen salesman. Is there anything else I can find for you, madam? He'll say. And she'll say, what floor do I find those crotchless panties at? Oh, he suddenly becomes interested in this customer. Oh, well, you can find those on the 3rd floor. Thank you so much, she'll say. And then he'll say, oh, could I show some to you? I'll come up with you and I'll show you the ones that I like the best. And she'll say, yeah, I'd like that very much. So they take the elevator up and they have a little romance. She comes back the next day. She returns the pen she bought because she's no longer going to give this to her husband. You know, I could be doing, you've been watching my story completely out of focus, but I wasn't drawing anything important. Crotchless panties. So, someone posted on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or I don't know where. It wasn't YouTube. Here was the woman in the picture. Here's her mask, her corona mask. And she couldn't breathe wearing the mask, so she cut a big hole in it like that. And this person is allowed to vote. Can you explain that to me? She also loves crotchless panties. That's what made me think of her. Oh, look at me. Look at how I screwed this up. Stripe, plain, stripe, plain, stripe, plain, stripe. On this side, stripe, plain, stripe, plain, stripe, plain, plain, stripe. Pay attention to what you're doing, Pierre. Let's add some mascara here. Her pencil-lined eyebrows. Curls. Do. Don't. Explain to me why she has the vote. Because we're a democracy. Yeah, that's what we get. If there's enough stupid people in our country, that's what we'll get. Stupid government. See, I'm getting angry. And you notice what I did? I put down the delicate pen to pick up the pen that allows me to get angry. That's why I need 5,000 pens, because I have 5,000 emotions. Happy, angry, with a continuum. What percentage angry am I today? Well, I don't want that pen, I want this one. What is this pen anyway? Bye.